this morning. It pushed back her meeting. She's going to follow up with us at our next meeting, hopefully. We'll definitely take care of archaeology this year, but we are going to have to shift this one back. Just letting you know now. So those of you who are worried that we might be here for a lot later than intended, guess what? We might be done on time today. So here we are. Susie?
You ready? You ready? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Susie Ferrara. I manage our SRS Cold War history program at the Savannah River site. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you. We have had a very, very busy year, and I'm really proud to share this with you. So let's kick it off really quick. I know we've got some new members on the cab, and I just want to tell you a little bit, because when I go out and talk to the employees and the public, they're like, wow, that is really cool. You hang on to the old stuff. Yeah, it is, but we're by compliance. So very quickly, and I'm sorry, Phyllis, am I standing in front of you? Excuse me, folks, I'm going to change sides. Don't want to get out of your way. So first of all, we're governed by the National Historic Preservation Act. And what that drives us to is what exactly you see on the screen. We're looking at the facilities, the equipment, the paperwork, you name it, pretty much. We go into the Savannah River Site District, which we have our own district, and save that information. So it is by compliance. And we have a programmatic agreement with the Department of Energy. And what that agreement basically tells you is that we work with our South Carolina State Preservation Office, SHPO. We have a very good relationship with them. Matter of fact, we were up there a couple of weeks ago giving a presentation on the history of the Savannah River plant, now known as the Savannah River Site, and brought out some of our historians and curators. So we have a very good relationship. Most of you'll learn later on in the presentation, a lot of the work that we do, we work hand in glove with them, so they do oversee what we're doing. And then, of course, we go ahead and identify some of our facilities for preservation, write histories, collect the artifacts, and of course, my personal favorite is public outreach, being a PR person at the site for a long time. Just a lot of photography you're going to see, and I tell you, it's a neat job because we have our own digitization expert. And I will tell you right now, the Department of Energy has tasked me with saving 400,000 historical photographs that we have to digitize. So we'll talk a little bit about that. That is actually Hector in the foreground. It used to be a heavy water components test reactor, and that's actually temporary construction 1 and 2. Today, if you go on a site tour, for those of you, I'm sure Phyllis will be lining up for you, that's actually where Centera, our security force, is housed. We are a very resource identification, National Register eligible, so we are a Cold War historic district. This, what you see here, is the old 3700 building. Very phenomenal. As a matter of fact, very excited this week, our historian Mary Beth Reed will be taking the first photographs for historic assessment in the basement of that facility for our Emergency Operations Center. They're going to move that out, and then we'll go ahead and start the photography, the rest of the facilities. But these are some of the conceptual plans that we have from back in the 50s. So that gives you an idea that we are so large, we're our own district to cover. I will tell you, when I go and talk out to the community, we do a lot of things old school. We do a lot of reports. And as a matter of fact, James, after I'm done, I did bring you folks a copy of our annual report. This is my annual report that I give to the Department of Energy and reports out all of the activity that we did this year. I'm really, really proud of our group. We've worked hard this year. We've got a lot accomplished. So other things that we do is the Images of America, the Savannah River Plant book. We put it out last year. The forward is done by Walt Joseph. He is our founder of the SRS Museum, which I'll cover a little bit later. It is a fundraiser for our museum. And then also our thematic studies. Those are found on SHPO's website, the State Historic Preservation Office, and also Insight for our employees to see as well. Right now, Josh Blackman, one of our historians, is working on our environmental thematic studies report, which is working with some of our retirees, getting their feedback, doing oral histories. It's a lot of work. I'm really excited to see how that's going to come out. And of course, the annual summary as well. But these are samples of the thematic studies that you can find online. That's the book that Walt and the team worked on. And then you'll see that we did one of the U.S. Forest Service, my friends are with me today, fire towers. They're going to be looking to take those on site. So we've already done the historic preservation work on those. So when you come on the Savannah River site, you're going to turn the corner from 3700 and you're going to see us. Nothing sexy about that building, but I'm going to tell you what's inside is pretty darn cool. So that's the team at the Savannah River site. Andy Horser's my counterpart in the Department of Energy. Mary Beth Reed is our Savannah River site historian. She's been on the team for 25 years. I always joke and say she knows where the bodies are buried, but she is the best. I will tell you, they are the leading subcontractor in the Southeast. Her team is excellent. Josh, Melissa, and Aaron are with me on site. We are just finished up a campaign with our employees. Some of you may know on the Savannah River site, we have a big safety expo. We talk about safety with our employees, and we're able to go out and do an exhibit. And we did that. And I'll tell you right now, there's a reason why I did it. We're having a lot of new employees come on the Savannah River site, and I've got a lot of employees retiring. And the first thing I say to them is, don't throw anything out. Don't pull up the basket, throw it out, because we want it. And I have found out I am definitely not a historian. It is not up to me on what, because I will tell you a quick story. When you come on the Savannah River site back in the 50s and 60s, they had these little metal sheds. They were carpool sheds. So you waited and your carpool member dropped you off. And I'm gonna tell you, they've had some wear and tear. So I got a call from Melissa one day. She goes, Susie, I believe the CRO is starting to access the community reuse organization. Some of the sheds, we need one. I'm like, girl, you have got to be kidding me. She said, yes, ma'am, that tells a story. It's part of our history. So if you go to 315M, and I think you folks will be in Augusta, your next meeting, I invite you, if we can invite them out to get to the curation facility. It's really neat to see, and you can see our own little carpool shed as well. So in that facility is the state of the art. We have things that are the temperature and humidity control. It's safe for the artifacts. We also share that facility with the Savannah River Archaeology Program. They have some documents in there, and we'll talk a little bit about our tourism that's coming up. But it's a nice partnership within the facility. I'm very proud of our tourism and outreach this year. We just kicked the throttle to about 500%. And this is just a summary side of what we've been doing. Other than collecting artifacts and the photographs that Nate is digitizing for us, and as a matter of fact, his neat treasure that he found a couple of months ago for me, he called me, he said, Miss Susie, I just found a picture of General Leslie Groves that visited the Savannah River plant in 1954. And I said, hang on to that, the 75th anniversary is coming. So we have a lot of pictures of pipes, we got a lot of pictures of processes, we got a lot of pictures of trees, but every once in a while he finds a nice nugget for me. You'll get a copy of our annual report. Our cultural resources management plan is kind of that agreement with the Department of Energy. We kind of outline what we're doing, so we've updated it. It's been a while since we have, so that's in review, and that's a good communications tool and a good agreement that I sit down with the DOE and we hash it out and what can we accomplish for the government. And we have a wonderful relationship with our Savannah River Site Retirees Association. Why do I need those retirees? Well, first of all, I will tell you, these are the folks that did the work at the Savannah River site, and we get parts and pieces. And it's like, what in the world is that? So my curators can call on them. We do bring them into the facility. And there's another job that I can always ask them to do if they want to work at the SRS Museum. Our heritage tourism meetings, as a matter of fact, we've got one coming up Thursday. That's our advisory team, that's DOE, our curation team. We sit down quarterly, how are we doing, what do we need to be doing, things of that nature. And after that meeting finishes out, we invite our area museum and tour officials. And I've got to tell you folks, if you're not familiar with the arts, the museums, things of that nature, those folks had a hard restart from COVID. I mean, museums shut down. And so we're able to share and collect information. How can we help us? More importantly, how can we be a resource to our community? So I'm really proud of those tourism meetings. They're going very, very well. Our public tours are really great. A couple of years ago, we just basically did 8. Actually, it was 6, and we sold out. We had 100 people on the waiting list to come to our historic tours. Called over to the Department of Energy. I said, I hate to tell you, I think we have a good problem. Can I do a couple of more? They said, sure, and they sell out every year. So in the spring, we bring folks through the curation facility, they tour around the site, and then we take them to one of the old communities, either Dunbarton or the town of Ellington in the fall. And I gotta thank my U.S. Forest Service buddies for cleaning up Ellington for us because it had been a while since we opened up the gates. And then also Aiken County Council, we have a strong relationship with the county, with the museum space. Gary asked me the question, Councilman Bunker, he goes, Susie, do you have enough stuff to keep that museum going? And I said, well, Chairman, why don't you come up and take a look? So it was a great conversation. And then finally, the historic photography blog. I will tell you the average age of the Savannah River Site employee coming in is mighty young, folks. Or I'm not getting older, they're just getting younger coming in. But I will tell you, I'm always looking at ways, how am I going to sell what I always tell them, this ain't your grandmama's museum, this isn't dull and boring, this is important history. I will tell you it's important for a Savannah River Site employee coming in today for knowledge transfer. I will tell you the average age of an employee coming in today does not understand how the South Carolina, how the Savannah River plant won the Cold War. And we walk them through that. We share that. And it's really neat. I was with 60 SRMC employees yesterday. They're summer interns. And they were just amazed because I'm a second generation worker. And I was talking to Chris and SRNL and Phyllis at lunch is that growing up as in the nuclear family, you took it for granted because you didn't know what your dad did for a living. And then when you get behind the gates, you're like, wow, it's really neat. So that's a very important part that our history program continues to tell the story for our employees. So telling our story is not always easy, but I will tell you, if there's been an opportunity this year, we have jumped on it with both feet. For those of you that are familiar with the University of South Carolina and their satellite campuses, University of South Carolina Aiken does a program called Lifelong Learning, mostly senior folks in the community. So they asked us to come out. That's actually Josh giving a lecture on what we do for lifelong learning. And it's a little bit difficult. Do you know why? Because those folks that worked out of that plant for a long time is your audience. So you better know what you're talking about because they'll set you straight. But it's been great. We sold out all our classes. They've invited us out for the fall. So the teams, we're working on that literature right now and what we're going to present. Melissa, we sent her out even to the agricultural club. If somebody wanted to have us, and you can see I've run the community circuit, we've talked about it because I've told my bosses the best kept secret on the Savannah River site is our history. And it's quite a story to tell. It's quite an honor to be able to tell it, I'll be honest with you. Ooh, excuse me. On-site facility, this is very important too. I'm always trying to keep our employees educated, show them some of the history. This is actually, we just changed out of the SRS training facility. It's one of our larger facilities on site. If you're being trained on the Savannah River site as an employee, you're coming through those doors. Actually, this was the Atomic Energy Commission. Today we know as the Department of Energy historic exhibit. We just changed it out. So we're moving and grooving. We're always keeping our information fresh. So let me transition a little bit to a really neat part of our outreach program. Part of our CRIMP, our cultural resource plan, is that we have to educate the public. How do we tell the story? Well, our legacy starts with Walt Joseph. Walt, longtime DuPont management, and another gentleman by the name of Dr. Todd Crawford. Todd was a meteorologist in the National Lab. And these guys picked up on the fact that no one was saving any of the history, at least telling the story off-site. So they got together with a group that some of you might be familiar with, the Citizens for Nuclear Technology Awareness. Are we familiar with that group? Kind of a pro-nuclear group. They try to educate the public on nuclear. So they met with CNTA and they said, we're going to start a nonprofit. And I will tell you, Jeff Allison, our former DOE manager, had walked this a long time. I was in public affairs for the contractor at the time. Very hard to find space on the Savannah River site for a museum. Yeah, it doesn't quite fit in the blueprint. Where can you find it in the community? Very, very hard. And then one day, the former chairman, God rest his soul, Ronnie Young, called Walt Joseph and he said, Walt, I got a place for you. And I think Walt about passed out that day. And this is the old Dibble Library. So if you come to Aiken, in downtown Aiken, it's off of Lawrence Street, a little far off. And Henry Dibble used to be a banker in Aiken. He was really big into literacy. So when he passed, he left some money to build a museum. Wasn't quite enough, so his friends came in, built the museum, and the rest is history. Interesting things about running curation facilities and old buildings. Anybody own an old house? Yeah, mold. Yeah. Thank you, Juanita. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge for me. But let me point out this little clamshell. Does everybody see that? Let me tell you about that clamshell. 100 years old. Horsehair and plaster and newspaper. So I'm getting ready to have a big festival. Community's coming in, all these little kids, and Linda, our director, goes, Susie, we've got a problem. I'm like, I don't want to hear this. We've got 24 hours to a festival. Actually it was more like 2 weeks, but she said the clamshell is falling apart. We already had support beams up on it. Well, guess what, guys? Here's a quick fact. Horsehair and plaster doesn't last forever. So we had to get with the county. It's an Aiken County building. They're allowing us to squat in it, so to speak. So if you come to the museum today, right now there's a big board. We're working with on getting a replica made, and of course that'll have to go through the Historic Commission. The other neat thing is when we put in the new exhibit I'm about to talk about, you see these old these shelves, they pulled them out. And I know this age group knows this. Do y'all remember the old library cards that they put in the machine and went, cha-jong? We found one. So it's kind of neat. But I want to show you, we just put together on site our Savannah River Nuclear Solutions video team. This is the clip that we are showing. It's on YouTube, but we showed it to our employees, and I thought this would kind of explain the story a little bit better for you. Can you see? I'm glad these guys are doing it, not me.
So sometimes they use things called glove boxes, and they still use them today. So first of all, we have a world-class staff. These are just models of what a glove box would be. It would be much bigger. We have an education specialist, school teacher by trade. She taught at a local university, and she's leading and heading up our curriculum for our education program. But not being able to actually touch them with your hands. And on top of that, we have the retirees. These are the men and women that have done the work for over 30 plus years. So very, very grateful that they're here to volunteer and share that knowledge and stories with the community.
So the Savannah River Site Museum was established to preserve and interpret the technical and scientific achievements, the social impacts, and the ecological accomplishments of the Savannah River Site, giving the general public a peek behind the fence, if you will.
Follow me over this way.
Where history and science collide.
So this is a safety meeting, and just a little slice of all these construction workers that went with
This is a very unique opportunity to tell both a science story, but also a historic one as well.
Just kind of gives you an idea what a huge undertaking it was.
It's part of the SRS Cold War History Preservation Program. So it's really where we take the artifacts from our 315 curation facility and bring educational exhibits and bring them out from inside and debate and educate the community. We have some great exhibits. The new one that's kind of my favorite right now is the Fallout Shelter. And that really has folks step back in the 50s and what would it mean to be in the basement of your house and have a fallout shelter? One of the questions we do ask folks is, what would you bring to a fallout shelter? And the answers will surprise you. It's really a neat way to step back in time and experience the Cold War.
So we're constantly adding new technology and hands-on exhibits in the museum. We offer oral histories, so touch screens. We have a variety of uraniums because our museum mascot. He explains to visitors how the process works from getting a fuel slug all the way through to a finished product.
He's been a big hit with the kids. And it kind of walks them through a very scientific process on a very basic level.
Let's look here. It's very
I think it's quite an honor to be in a place where you can help preserve the history. How do we make it flow for generations to come? As we get more new hires and more people moving into the area, we are actually telling the story of how we won the Cold War. We're telling the story of all the hard work, and more importantly, it's for the years to come.
Well, the future is very bright here at the SRS Museum. We are constantly growing and constantly evolving as the museum should. We invite everyone to come down and be a part of our group.
So the museum is open to the public 10 to 4 every Wednesday through Saturday. And if you haven't been to the museum, it is a must-see. Bring your children, bring the family. It tells the story of what the Savannah River plant was in the 50s, whether you live in Avondale, Atlanta, Barnwell, Aiken, North Augusta, it's a must-see, and you will be entertained.
It changed. We were good, and they really did underground days in the cool down. It's great.
So that's really Roddy Uranium. He's our mascot. And I did get a call a couple of weeks ago from Lawrence Livermore, Los Alamos, and they said, "You've got a mascot." I said, "Why, yes, we do." And he's been very important to us because, again, how do you pull children in to a very scientific process? And he has been great. So we have Roddy stickers and fluorescent pencils, and all that. He's been a lot of fun. But we're going to do more with Roddy in the future, I hope. I will tell you, the National Nuclear Security Administration gave us a grant in 2022. We had a big ribbon cutting, and that's when the party was on. Our numbers have continued to increase, and as of this month, we're already over 1,400 people. That really warms your heart, especially when we have a lot of supporters, such as our site contractors, our members in the community. We're adding value. We're bringing our community and telling our story. We got front page of the Aiken Standard, and we had Congressman Wilson and NNSA with us, so we were really excited about that day. The video touched a little bit on. I just want to kind of do a shout out to some of our contractors, such as the Savannah River National Laboratory. Dr. Lindsey Brown actually got some of her colleagues together and put together this radiation exhibit, and it's touchscreen, and it tells a little bit more about radiation. It's not so scary. It's a good, nice exhibit, kid-friendly, and then also, I tell you, the fall out shelter, you have to come and see it. It's a lot of fun, and it really brings you back into the old days, so it's a lot of fun. Our largest area of growth, I think, for the future will be education programs. We team up with my company's education programs, and anywhere I can do a career panel, or we can bring kids in, and they just had 25 scouts through last Saturday. That nuclear scout patch is our hottest ticket item. We're getting a lot of kids through, a lot of scouts getting that. And then, like I said, with Kelly, she is a trained teacher, and she did some of our lessons plans. So I expect our student and all of that outreach to grow, and they're going to also do some career camps this summer. I tell you what, you never doubt somebody when they come to you with an idea, and Linda, our director, called me. She said, "Susie, I got an idea for the fall." I said, "All right." She goes, "Let's do a fission festival." All right. What do you think? She said, "Well," I said, "Well, let's give it a try. Let's do it in October." And the Fission Festival is, again, another way. How can I get kids into the museum? How can I get interested in science, math, technology, engineering? And I tell you, folks, we had 650 people. Kids in costumes, we had food trucks, the museum was open. We had some of our retirees that had a bluegrass band. We gave Aiken's Macon a run for their money, our local things. I was very proud of that. So they're all getting cranked up this year. But again, the message is, how do you bring them into a museum? How do you get interested in science? How do you get some of the kids that didn't work at the Savannah River plant to let them see what their parents did for a living? So if you're bored, or if you want to come around, I think it's October 19th this year. Yep. So we're getting ready for that. And those are our museums. If you would like to, I invite you to join our newsletter. Actually, Linda's working on the next one right now. And it just is a good sneak peek inside, not only the fence line of the Savannah River site, but also what we're doing. So got a hard-working team that's really making it very user-friendly. So what's on the horizon? I think most of you guys should know that the Savannah River site turns 75. SRNL is celebrating their 20th. We've been helping Chris and his team. So we're going to continue to preserve artifacts. That's what we do. Like I said, we'll continue to reach out with all of our employees. If you see something, call us. Don't take it upon yourselves. Let's start curating and make sure we're saving that. We will always tell the story of our history and our legacy. As a matter of fact, for the Department of Energy, Throwback Thursday, if you haven't gone on social media and liked the Savannah River site, that comes from our team. They dig up all that. Matter of fact, that's Dr. Ruth Patrick. Everybody know who Ruth Patrick is, right? She was hired by the National Academy of Sciences to do the baseline environmental study before we turned the first shovel of dirt. A lot of folks, there's actually a building at USC Aiken named after her. I think paycheck line's a little bit different these days, and then those are our first female reactor operators. So we pull all those together for Department of Energy Office of External Affairs. We did support the Historic Preservation Conference. I think our presentations went well. It was good to meet some other historians from across the state and just kind of network. And then Nate's going to continue to digitize and growing our education outreach. Right now, it takes about 2 years to come up with an exhibit. Mary Beth and her team, we've already kind of planned as far as we can go until we can get funding, but it'll be 75 years, 75 artifacts. We've got so many artifacts, we're going to bring some of them down to the museum. The other ones we'll bring out and open up the curation facility. We're working on those plans now because you need to understand that curation facility is not a tour spot. It is a working lab. So it's my responsibility. If I open it up, I have to keep the artifacts safe. More importantly, I have to keep my tourists safe. So we're got to do a little homework as well. But they're meeting the anniversary committee now. I sit on that, and it's really good stuff. And I believe they're planning to bring our employees' families in for that day. And then we'll work on the curation facility. So a lot of work ahead of us. It's going to be an exciting year. That's all I have prepared. Are there any questions I can answer?
We're going to start with Candace, right over there.
Yes, ma'am.
Cab. Thank you, Susie. It was fascinating. I have a degree in history, so this really excites me. But my question is a little selfish. Do you all have any cab history? Are you collecting cab artifacts or history? I don't know what that would look like. I'm just curious.
Well, I'm sure it would be either a badge or I don't know. James, we're going to have to talk.
Let's talk.
We'll talk. But you know, you make light of that. That's very important because I think if I can kind of, I'm not going to speak for the government, but working in public affairs for the contractor, starting the whole cab and getting that dialogue and getting the community to the table, and Amy, I don't want to overstep my bounds, that's an important piece, and that started in the 80s. And, you know, bringing people to the table like you guys are doing today, and I was telling Phyllis at lunch, learning the environmental regulatory piece is very, very important, and it's important for the public, I'm just speaking as an employee, that y'all understand that there's oversight groups, you know, and that transparency. But that's we need to talk because that's an important piece of history when we bring the public in, and y'all are sitting at the tables for us. So, all right, we got homework. Anybody else?
We'll come right
Yes,
over here
ma'am.
to Sade.
Hello, thank you so much for that enthusiastic presentation. Yeah, it's really exciting what you guys are doing. I am curious about your educational programs. Can
Yes.
you please describe some of your science-based
Absolutely.
lesson plans?
Absolutely. So we started out by hook and by crook. And again, it was like, how do you get kids involved? So our first stab was really to hire Kelly Galvarino, who was a teacher by trade. She also works at the Ruth Patrick Science Center in Aiken. So she's got that background, because if you're familiar with USC Aiken, they do a lot of science and engineering days. They do a lot of camps with kids. So you kind of have to find a teacher that doesn't just talk it, but delivers. So you see on the video, she takes the kids around. They do a little scavenger hunt. She's constantly changing it up. And then with the new exhibits, how do you interact? So just the general public tour or education tours for kids. Matter of fact, the North Augusta Chamber President, Tara Carroll, she's big on junior leadership and exposing kids to let them see the workplace shadowing. So we bring in her North Augusta Junior Leadership class and tour the kids. Career panels, any contractor on site, SRMC, SRNS, SRNL, we're there. We open our doors. We have a little scientific cafe on the basement across from our corporate offices, and they let us use downstairs, and it's kind of a classroomy, kind of casual cafe. What else are we doing? Scout, I tell you, the merit badge thing is a home run. The Georgia-South Carolina Scout Council found out about it. And I tell you, the team is, by Sunday, they're worn out because it's usually 25, 30 kids, and they're getting that merit badge. They're doing that. So we are flexible. Like I said, anytime education calls us, we're there. because we know that is another communications channel. We can get to those kids early and get them excited about, like I said, engineering or math or that technology. So thank you for that question. I'm excited about our future, I really am.
Yeah, likewise. You mentioned that you guys wanted to do more exhibits and kind of touched upon the exhibit for the 75th anniversary.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you guys had funding needs. Will you please elaborate on those funding needs?
Sure. Well, first of all, we're a nonprofit, and we're not owned by the Department of Energy. We're a nonprofit, and let me just say, DOE and NNSA has been very generous. All of our site contractors are very, very generous because we've really grown so much in the marketing we're running as we can. Some of the funding needs is that's a very old building. It's small. So I want you guys, you need to come. I'm going to invite you again. There is not a square inch in that facility we haven't slapped something up there. It's very small. It's very quaint, but each room is used very specific. We do have like an old dumbwaiter, like it used to be a records building. We need to pull that out and open up that gallery to give more because the contractors are very good to us. They're the technical experts. You know, I know a couple of them are ready to come in and change it out. But I will tell you, we have some of the best folks, contractors working on that. Exhibits are not cheap. They are not. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's construction. The one, can we bring it back up? Let me see if I can go back. I want to show you the model. Can I go back up? Bear with me, folks. So let me just talk quickly. I don't want to belabor it. This one right here, this exhibit right here is the 315M balsa wood model of that reactor. I have 40 models inside that facility. I don't know if you can see, you can't see in the back corner, P reactor tank came out of the curation facility. It costs money this thing was destroyed. Something fell on it or it broke or whatever. Mm-hmm. With NNSA's generosity, we're able, through the state of South Carolina, to find preservationist curators, these folks that, hey, thanks, Chris, for this map that used to be in the National Lab. We fixed that. And this lights up, so when y'all come visit, this one's really neat. So like I said, it's kind of taking those artifacts, but you've got to make sure they're in good working condition to tell the story of things of that nature. So it takes some money and it takes time, and we want to do it right. You know, I'll be honest with you, and if Walt Joseph was sitting in this room, he'd look at me. You know, back in the day, it was kind of like they'd slap a little poster board up. So we're past that. So again, we want to be, I'll tell you what our dream is. We want to be like Los Alamos. We want to be like one of the big dogs, and they've been very gracious within the complex, but we got a while to go. We're baby steps, but they started there one day, but I think it really is a neat resource for our community and for the kids, and that's going to continue to drive for us. We really want to get there.
Thank you. Are you guys considering any VR to help to expand your access and make the museum more accessible to everyone? Just about everywhere, then it could be a good way to make use of the small space. It doesn't require that much space to put on headsets.
So right now we're working on that. There's a 10-year plan they're drafting that would talk about that. We have benchmarked with the South Carolina State Museum. We sent Linda and Kelly up, go learn what they're doing. What does it take us to grow? So I think we'll get there. It's going to be some baby steps. So yes, but we're out there doing our homework now, but it's going to take some time. And we probably, if we get the funding, we can build out. We've got plans for that. But like I said, it's early in the game. It's going to take us some time.
Sorry, my last question.
That's okay.
Okay, so for your funding, are you relying on these contractors or federal agencies, or are there like other entities that you're looking at or that's supporting you guys?
Excellent question. The answer is all of the above. As a matter of fact, let me go back. I may have missed it. Excuse me one second. Anyway, if I don't hit it, we branched out. We actually were a finalist in the, I don't have it, Porter Fleming grant. The Augusta National, the golf tournament, has funds that they do for nonprofits, and we competed. We were a finalist. We got $5,000. It's a very comprehensive program. So we do have a team out looking for grants. How can we, bring in other funding? Because, like I said, we always are kind of hesitant to keep going back to our contractors and folks, but they're very, very generous. So we're trying to branch out and see where we can. And a lot of that comes with our discussions with other museums and things of that nature.
For sure. I definitely think looking at the endowment for the arts might be I'm positive there are like tons of funding opportunities there, as well as Smithsonian.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. Like I said, I've got 2 ladies that work on those, and they are like a dog with a bone. You just say, hey, ladies, you need to go work here and do that. But I appreciate that. We're like I said, we're always looking, especially in these economic times. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Phyllis?
Phyllis.
Phyllis Britt Cab. I was just wondering, something that struck me as you were moving along, how far-reaching do you and/or the museum plan to go as far as the community goes?
So an old public relations theory is you always start with the hub of the wheel. So you always bring that Aiken community in. And I'll be transparent with you, Phyllis. When I came on board 2 years ago, they had Mal McKibben, who's been deceased for several years, as the point of contact for the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, boy, we got some work. So strategically, we worked through getting chamber, local business, civic group. Civic groups, in Aiken, that's the way to go. So you saw on that slide, we were out talking. So we've kind of got the Aiken nucleus where we want. Aiken Standard's been very generous and news coverage. So I think folks know we're on the street. We're starting to move to North Augusta, the North Augusta Chamber. We're going to try to get on their program and talk. We're already reaching over to North Augusta with their historic society. They've come and met with us. So right now, Phyllis, if I can get to North Augusta, Columbia, we've been working a little bit, like I said, when we go up and talk to our SHPO and doing those conferences. So it's going to take time. The hardest part is, but initial was to get the home team on, the employees, the retirees, take care of our community. And like I said, because trust me, I've got employees that say, Susie, we're in Columbia County. When are you going to get to us? I'm like, guys, I'm running as fast as I can, but we're going to get there. But that's the plan, hub of the wheel, and we'll start. Because that's when you heard on the wheel, what you heard on the video was strategic. Barnwell, Aiken, Allendale, North Augusta, Atlanta. I left out Augusta or Columbia County, and I was reminded of that by a friend. So we're going to get there. It's going to take some time. So
what I'm thinking too is from the other side, as far as the history itself goes, so much of what makes up this community, makes up Aiken County in particular, is the result of the people who worked at the site. Something that crossed my mind was Fermata Club. I don't think that would have happened if it hadn't been for SRP.
Right.
So I don't know how far, whether you have enough to have those many tentacles out
Not
there.
yet. She touches on the Fermata Club. That was a local swimming hole for some of us DuPont kids. We grew up on a swim team. It basically kind of kept us off the street. But also, where you're going with that, Phyllis, it's, the Aiken County Playhouse was started by DuPonters.
Right, exactly.
Education. And I apologize, I got so many presentations. We could do a whole nother presentation. Education. The Savannah River plant was all about education. USC Aiken started at what is today the old Aiken County the museum. It's just a little one-room, small mansion, and now, look where it is. You got SRNL adding to the growth and things of that nature. So culture, education, all that. So right now, Mary Beth and the team has that, and I'll tell you, that comes into that 75th exhibit. But I promise you, we won't run out of topics. We'll be back. If you guys want us back, we've got plenty to talk about. So, but good point. Good point. You two ladies add some good value to us. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Well, the invitation is always open. James, y'all are invited anytime. If you want to come to the curation facility or come see the museum, we'd love to host you. All right. Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed your time. Thank you very much. James, to hand out, these are for all of you folks. This is our annual report. So if I missed anything, it's all in here.
Thank you. All right, while our next presenter gets mic'd up, we're going to take a short break because I know you don't need it, but I saw the hotel set out some cookies for us, and I got a text message from somebody who was really enthusiastic about going and getting one. I didn't say who. Why are you looking at me like that? Sell yourself out. 10 minutes, please. We'll be back at 3:20. Early, but
Bacon is low.
we also took a break a minute or so early. It's been 10 minutes.
It's gonna be just as bad as this, because let me tell you.
Everybody
like I
ready?
say, all the coming.
I'm hearing a lot of talking for people who are
They're
ready.
supposed to visit and go home.
All right. Thank you, everyone. One more presentation, a little bit of board business this afternoon to take care of, and then we'll be on our way. All right? We ready to go? Forest Service.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Brandon Hughes. If you look at the board, it does say Davila Clark. Unfortunately, Mr. Davila Clark wasn't able to be here today, had a family emergency that came up. So he asked me this morning if I could step in, and I said I would. So bear with me a little bit, because usually it's Davila giving some of this stuff. But I'm happy to be here with you guys today and represent the USDA Forest Service on the Savannah River site. Let me grab my clicker. All right, so the USDA Forest Service was established not with the agency, it was in 1951 on the Atomic Energy Commission, or DOE lands. And as our agency, if you know much about our agency, we were established in 1905, had a pretty good reputation about forest management and things of that nature, dealing with social and economical benefits of forested lands. So by the nature of our agency, it really just made sense for them to come into play at the Department of Energy and work with them. The little fun-filled fact, over the last 2 years, have planted 10 million trees, which is quite a feat in itself, a lot of work that goes into that. But basically, in a nutshell, we're here to help support the Department of Energy, now NNSA, in the transition that's going on with the future of the Savannah River site and their forest management actions. We're in a 5-year agreement with Savannah, or with DOE right now, which will soon be an NNSA, and that 5-year agreement is revisited every 5 years. So we are broken up in our departments. We broke it down to basically 5 different functions. We have planning and natural resource management. That timber, wildlife goes into that department. We have a research department. We have the fire program, which I oversee, and it's really exciting. And I can tell you a lot more about that if you guys want to talk about that. And then we have the engineering and environmental services, and then our safety and operations and communications groups. So with the planning and natural resources, really, like I already mentioned, they're tasked to looking at things innovatively, coming up with management actions to help restore and bring out resource objectives, such as putting in planting trees and making sure that we're harvesting and utilizing all the best technologies to go through and do forestry management. And we do have, when we look at our forest management plan, it's broken up into 6 different management areas. And in those management areas, we do certain activities based on what those management areas require. Some of those management areas may look like RCW, or the red-cockaded woodpecker colonies, restoration activities like that, and so on and so forth. We do manage for T&E species. If you don't know what that means, it's a threatened and endangered species. And it's actually quite a big component to us, and we take it pretty seriously. We apply fire on a large scale to control fuel loads and invasive plants that are on the site. We do removal and vegetation reductions to remove the threat to the Savannah River site itself and the industrial core and the facilities that are there. And we also work with putting out pollinators and other things of that nature. And that's just a little snapshot. There's a lot more that goes into the planning and natural resources. So on average, and this is some statistics, if you will, how we benefit or contribute to the economic situations that we're in. With all the things that we've done, we've planted over an average of 400,000 trees a year. And if you look at the cells, we're at 700,000 CCF, which is a cubic, let's see, board cubic feet, or 100 cubic feet. That's different department. I got to readjust my calculations. I go in chains. But that's a lot of timber. It's enough to build 6,000 homes. So it's quite a bit. We generate over $4 million in revenue for the U.S. Treasury. And we're responsible for creating roughly about over 300 jobs across, not just on the site, but off-site, with the contracting and all the things that are associated with timber sales and harvesting, from all those different components that go into it, from milling all the way from taking it off the site. And then within the CSRA, our timber program has an economic impact of about 37 million, a little over $37 million across 6 main economic sectors, doing those associated activities I just mentioned. Again, like I mentioned, we do take our T&E species seriously, the threatened and endangered species seriously, and I'll have to, when we get down to this, there is a little typo here. But we manage for red cockaded woodpecker. It's one of the species that we really found and latched onto in management, and it's been very, very successful. As you see the stats on here, we went from 4 birds on site that we found in 1985, and currently right now, and I believe it's over 600, but in 2024, the last survey on it puts us over 600. So it's been very successful. They're pretty happy on the site, and they have all the reasons to be happy because we've been able to manage the landscape in a way that promotes and allows the restoration for those species to do a lot better than they normally have done in other places. We also manage for purple coneflower. It's a really cool, interesting flower, and that's purple coneflower right there. There's several different sites across the site that we manage for, and this particular plant loves fire, and we love it because it loves fire. But it does receive some competition, so there's some management that we have to do, making sure that it doesn't get overgrown with other vegetation competing for sunlight. So there's quite a bit of work that goes involved in that. We also manage for the palmberry flower, again endangered, and then other at-risk species, which there's actually 16 of them. The tricolored bat, the gopher frog, not the tortoise. The gopher frog is in South Carolina, but that's not one particular one that we have really found to manage. But the gopher frog is another one that we could put on there. And then the Florida pine snake. So there's, like I said, 16 different other species that are on the list for threatened, endangered, or sensitive. Our natural resource planning group also takes on and partners with many external individuals and groups. We just got done with a fishing event, really successful. I'm not sure about the number count, but I believe there was over 30 boats on the water. So, in each boat, there's several different people in there. We like to bring in folks like the wounded warriors, the first responders, disability and mobilely impaired individuals, veterans, and some of the children that are a little more at risk in their family settings and conditions. Really cool programs that we've been able to bring people out that normally wouldn't be able to be involved in outdoor activities and have it at a kind of a controlled environment. And it's actually very successful. The turkey hunts, every year there's pretty big turkeys that come off there, 24, 26-pound turkeys. And then the bass, because there isn't a lot of pressure on the fishing, they end up with some pretty decent-sized bass, and other species of fish like crappie and things of that nature. But we're really proud of this community outreach programs and bringing these folks in and helping them maybe build some skill sets that they didn't normally think that they would be interested in, and letting them have that challenge and opportunity. And just side note, you probably read at the top, it has been going on for quite some time, 19 years and plus. We also manage nuisance animals on the site. There's quite a few, but our program, the USDA manages it on a 365-day, 24/7. So if there's an accident or if there's some kind of sightings for hogs, evasive hogs that are moving, feral hogs that are running around, and there's quite a bit of those, we will deploy our staff to go take care of, capture, and do what they need to do to manage those animals that are typically growing prolifically across South Carolina and many other states as well. So they're becoming they're quite a problem across many states. So they're not Savannah River is not immune to this problem. So and again, our folks stay on call for all this. We also respond to any kind of things like snakes near the office, the critters that get to be in the facilities, because the facility is surrounded by vegetation and woods, and we do get a lot of things that like to try to move their homes a little bit closer to that. Again, our planning and natural resource planning folks, they also work in coordination with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources to help manage and oversee the Cracker Neck area, which is it'd be the southeastern portion of the site. That portion of the site is open to the public with limited time frames. I believe it states from, I want to say Friday to Saturdays. Yeah, Friday to Saturdays. But really the biggest part is the Savannah River site is typically closed to the public. There's a lot of interest to want to have folks go on there and recreate. There's been a lot of requests, I know, that as trying to promote the use of Savannah River site in a different way. This is one particular area that allows that to happen. We allow hunting opportunities to go on publicly. We still, we do have to manage it in a certain way to make sure that we have accountability coming in and out. So the Department of Natural Resources helps us out with that. They also take on any kind of public concerns that may arise in that area. Because as you know, if you bring public in with the things that go on, there may be some emergencies that come out of it, and there has been from time to time, and just being able to help make sure that the public stays safe when they're in that area. We, on the USDA side, help manage the landscape with timber cells. We fix the roads in there. We've also maintained some of the open area, grass areas for wildlife and species, or some of the vegetation aspects with restoration projects for openings for wildlife to help encourage more growth of some of the public hunting elements. We also, going into research, this is pretty unique to the United States Forest Service. We have a research program, and the Savannah River site actually was one of the first National Environmental Research Park. And they're pretty proud of that, and they should be, because it is unique. It's closed to the public. They can do a little bit more of the research without public getting involved in manipulating some of the instruments that we may leave out and things of that nature. So it's allowed them to really concentrate on the work that they're doing without having to worry about people messing with the equipment, which if you go to any forest out there, a lot of vandalism occurring on things that get left in the woods by the USDA Forest Service. And we're always repairing them when we're on the public sites. And that's just me speaking historically to my previous jobs. It seems like it's an ongoing thing. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens when you have public lands. They do a lot of studies with biological plants and animals and other natural resource activities, kind of validating and moving us forward, moving the needle, if you will, with how we implement and take in more innovative science-based technologies to make better decisions on the landscape as we face things like climate change and other natural events that may be hard for us to kind of make those adjustments to. They're basically as helping us peer support to make good decisions with the landscape that we have. Some of the other research projects include doing pollinator sites. They have a thing called the corridor study, and if you ever, everybody has access to Google Earth. So when you look at Google Earth, there's some odd-shaped areas out there that look like there's been some timber removed. Well, those are the corridor studies. Just kind of get you a little eyeball on that. And this is a picture up here. This is basically an opening of the corridor study. And it's helping to do more research on pollinators and bring in those type of species in. They do surveys and trackers on turkey and the reproductive cycles. They also look at coyote, and the reason why is they're actually doing a really cool project right now using some different technologies to see how predatory animals move around and what really their food range and desires may be, trying to figure out some of the range on that. They work with us quite a bit doing fire impacts and watershed and water quality. And we are now, the age of technology, right? Everybody seems to be using LiDAR. It's a kind of the buzz instruments out there. We're now implementing a lot more LiDAR use for doing vegetation disturbances in the field. So, fire management, my favorite activity. I can just put the pointer down. But our fire management activity is basically what we're providing is 24/7, 365 days protection to the facilities and all of the DOE sites. Outside of that perimeter, we're also looking at some boundary about a mile out, depending on severity and conditions. We may extend anything that threatens the Savannah River site. The U.S. Forest Service takes action on and works with the state and other private landowners that may be seeing some threats that come off their lands. We will go and help make sure that it does not become a problem on the Savannah River site. So we're working pretty hard to make sure that doesn't ever happen with a prescribed fire. And we, this year alone, put 37,000 acres of prescribed fire on the ground successfully. Typically averaged, our normal average is about 23,000 acres a year, and we've managed to get 37,000 acres a year treated with prescribed fire. And it's really great because, with the whole setback in COVID, it's allowed us to kind of catch back up into speed and get some of those lands that hadn't yet been treated because of how COVID impacted all of us. We also host modules across the nation. Lots of trainees that come through the doors working through prescribed burning, and we're kind of a platform for the nation to bring people to learn about prescribed fire, become professionals, and burn bosses is what we call them. We bring a ton of modules in to help us out to do that, and it's been a really successful program. They can go off forest to another place and bring those skill sets to help continue the work on their own forest across the nation. We bring in quite a bit of modules. So the other things that we like to try to do is some of the mechanical maintenance. We're looking at getting a little more involved in that, looking at facilities and how we're trying to reduce some of the impacts to vegetation that is close by, may pose a threat to site facilities. And we're doing a pretty good job trying to keep all that up to par. So how we address our public concerns, we use Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. It's now X, I believe, right, Joe? X. And we put a notice in our newspapers, and whenever we get a chance to engage the community, we try to talk about what we're doing and why it's important with the fire management aspects of things. And I know that we just spoke with the Rotary community, a Rotary Club over in Aiken, so it's kind of cool to see a face that was there. But again, trying to outreach and kind of tell that story, paint that picture of what the USDA does. And I did want to put a brief note into there. One of the things that kind of we don't talk much about is our prevention and mitigation efforts and outreach in public. So this year we did 15 events and we hit about 9,000 students from all the events. So we're doing a lot of outreaching to our public and making sure the surrounding communities are aware of not only who we are and what we're doing, but also the opportunities that they have to work with the USDA Forest Service and more broadly the Department of Energy and NSA, some of those opportunities. Going into engineering, another thing that we end up doing is some engineering and environmental services. The road services, we grade over 900 miles of roads. We mow about 420 miles worth of that. And we do a lot of roadside brushing, along with trees that may pose threats to the facilities, road infrastructure, so anything like a hazard tree that you see out there that looks dead might be leaning towards the road. Those are some of the things that we end up trying to mitigate, so everybody on the site stays safe. And then obviously along with all that work, you got to survey and make sure that you maintain those conditions. And it's an ongoing feat. Lots of roads. I think overall it's roughly about 1,600 miles of roads that are on Savannah River site. So there's quite a bit of road systems. Some of the additional things that they do, and I think we already discussed this, was the phytoremediation, or what we be calling the mixed waste facility. We actually step up to that plate and take on managing that, making sure that the USDA oversees some of the projects and keeps that project going. Like I said, I think you guys have already heard about that this week, or the last 2 days, so I won't go too much in it. But it's a really cool facility. It's neat. For me, it's like, I had no idea you could do something like that. And being involved in the USDA has allowed me to see things in quite a bit of different perspective. Again, some of our forest challenges, and I wouldn't call them challenges. I think they're more, I'd see them more as opportunities to look at things more outwardly in our scope and practices. But some of the things that we're trying to get around and understand a little bit better is the climate change, facing some of those climate impacts that are ongoing and that are being talked about, with temperatures getting hotter and weather's getting, sometimes it seems like it's getting drier, sometimes it seems like getting wetter. It's really hard to balance some of these events that are going on, but to continue the work that we're doing successfully without any kind of hazards or safety to our people, it's becoming a little bit more of a challenge. We also, one of the challenges that we face is, when we do a 1,000-acre burn, or sometimes they're even bigger than that, our smoke and how we put smoke up into the atmosphere and how it impacts communities around the site. We got several different ways to talk with our external partners. We use the EPA regularly to discuss smoke impacts. We monitor it like crazy every single day. And we've also taken upon ourselves to deploy some smoke sensors around our communities to make sure that they are getting adequate clean air and that we're not impacting them any further than what the community that they're living in is doing to themselves. We do outreach to those folks around the site, trying to make sure that, when things change, people get older, they may have a health issue. They might be on one of our lists for need to know because they have health conditions. So we try to make sure we stay up on that. We also are looking at, how do we look at our watershed and take a better account for what management activities we're doing with timber sales, with road services, fire impacts. How do we make sure that we are supplying an adequate clean water supply to the Savannah River and not making it any worse as far as runoff, things of that nature that may produce more algae growth. And on top of that, a lot of amphibians live in our watershed. So trying not to make any worse living conditions for any of the species that are there and continuing their prosperity and growth. And there's that picture of the gopher frog. We did get it. Go, right there. Yeah, perfect. So to summarize what the USDA Forest Service is, we're always looking to bridge out and become better stewards, but also become better sponsors for our own agency, working with across the boundaries, bringing folks in like the UGA, UGA, AmeriCorps, and some of the other entities that we work with, the Department of Natural Resources, EPA, DHEC. We're always working, trying to build better relationships with them. So that is always something that we're trying to do to create a more sustainable environment that we're working in. We're also very concerned about our primary mission, which is the security and safety of Savannah River Site and the things that are ongoing there, and making sure that on top of making sure that place is really doing well in the forest management aspects of it, that we're also looking at doing restoration activities. And then the bottom line is our employees are our most valued asset and resource. So we're always happy to bring people in and have them in the USDA family. As you know, we're kind of a household name. You look across the nation, the Forest Service has got a lot of different reputations all across the nation as you move across different regions. And Region 8, specifically on Savannah River Site, we have a really great reputation that leads us to some really good outcomes in recruitment and success stories. And with the last slide, I'm not supposed to say this, but that might have been me in the Smokey Bear outfit. Don't tell your kids. That was supposed to probably not say that, but there's a code of conduct with Smokey Bear. But any questions for me?
We'll start over here.
All right, I've got a quick question. Are y'all doing anything with invasive species?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a program in place with our Natural Resources and Planning Group. Hannah Davis is our main point of person, but it's an ongoing effort with invasive species. But I don't know the statistics right off the top of our head, but I'm sure we're probably in the hundreds of acres of treated. We find where they are, and then we treat the point and sources of it, and then we have a plan that if you're in those areas that you're more sensitive to when you move from one area to the next, that you're more proactive. But yeah, it's pretty extensive. We go through herbicide spraying, we go through saw removal of vegetation and then spraying. We go through prescribed burning. Sometimes that works for certain plant species, but it's quite a feat. It's a big backyard, if you will.
Yeah, I know in the area I live in, like a Chinese tallow and...
That would be, if I could have my list of, and I'm not 100% certain, and maybe you guys can help me in the back, how many actual species of invasive plants we have on site. But I know it's at least a dozen that they're managing for. He's pointing up, so it's well over a dozen. But okay. Yeah, we take it pretty serious, and when we spot it, I mean, when we're fully staffed up, we have about 85, 90 employees on site, and we all try to do our best to identify it and make sure that when it's identified that the Natural Resource Planning Group takes account for it and has a plan for it.
Thank you.
You bet.
We'll come over here to this side to Scott.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott McKay, CAB. Just a quick question. We were talking earlier about using trees to do some scavenging. And I was wondering if you planted really fast-growing things. I won't mention switchgrass now that you're talking about invasive, but things like elephant grasses and so forth to further remediate your watershed areas for not only scavenging, but also to stabilize your riparian areas after your burns and pine replacements.
Yeah, so if we do have any kind of burn severity and typically we do not, because of the controlled environments that we set and how we mimic a natural environment of burning is we don't want to go through and burn a fire too hot through a riparian area. We allow it to back through, and a lot of times our burn patterns allow for that to happen. You know, it's rarely seen by fire impacts, but more severe storms and runoff and erosion created by that. But when we do find areas of that nature, usually they have a plan to either recover the land and get it back to the previous state, getting in there and getting something to do more soil stabilization, like using switchgrass and that nature. Doesn't happen often, but it's certainly something that we would do.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll come down here to Sade.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Microphone, please.
Hello, Shali Shofadia, SRS Cab. Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about your research that you're doing, the corridor research with pollinators. What species of pollinators are you guys focusing on, and what kind of research are you doing?
That's a great question, and I've got two guys that used to work in research sitting back there, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to really talk about the corridor studies. If you wouldn't mind, guys. Sorry, put you on the spot.
So the corridor study is all on native species in the pine savanna, and all the specific native species I can't call out. So you're more than welcome. It's National Science Foundation funded predominantly. It's been going on for over 2 decades. So I'd encourage you to have a look, and there's a lot of just basic ecology textbooks that occupies a page. That's been a landmark study in ecology. So it's really, really great work that they've done out there, and that's a fantastic project.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Any other questions for me? Well, that's
Come
great.
over here to Marty, please.
Hi, I'm Marty Ball. But what percentage of the site is devoted to management for forest products? How much is allowed to go to old growth and the natural habitat that would have been there before?
Sure. So we manage about 170,000 acres of land. The Forest Service does, that is outside the industrial corridor areas. Within that area, there's about 60,000 acres or so, give or take, with the RCW, our red-cockaded woodpecker area that we manage for. Within those areas, we still do timber harvesting. They're not immune to that activity because we do want to still promote an open prairie-like savanna. So sometimes you get a little bit of overstocking, new seed sources that come up, and we end up having to go in there and still do some opening. But primarily, I wouldn't call it old growth because it's really hard to classify what old growth is. And I've sat through a few conference calls about what is actually old growth, specifically looking in the south, because tree species like a loblolly or a longleaf pine, which is primarily what we have, and we have some older oaks, you're looking at like 120, 160 as a really old tree. When they get to about 60, 70 years old, they really kind of stunt out in further growth with getting up there. So they end up getting classified as other trees. They may have more tighter tree rings, but it's really hard to really manage for old growth, specifically because we're not in the setting of doing wilderness proposals. We're not underneath the congressional acts of managing for wilderness. So when we see the opportunity to bring more light to the social and economical benefits of our communities, we'll manage to continue to restore the restoration of plants and animals. And sometimes that means that some of those larger trees do get removed. So old growth, like I said, it's kind of hard to talk about it, especially on the Savannah River site, because we really don't manage for that kind of element. But we do manage for to making sure the habitat looks really good for other species, which sometimes is in old growth stands when you look at a national public landscape. I hope that answers your question.
We'll come over here, Mr. Hartley.
Nate Hartley, CAB. Thank you for your presentation. Along the lines of invasive species, I think Pat was talking about trees, but in the waters, are you seeing any fish? And if you are, what are you doing to eradicate them?
That's a really good question, but as far as I know, I don't think there's been any, like if you were to go to certain species like the goby is one of them, some strains of carp like the that you see in the Great Lakes and the the larger bodies of water, but on Savannah River site, there hasn't been a whole lot of invasive species moving into the area because I mean, they're really perennial, is that the right word to use? Perennial type streams. They're not flowing a whole lot of water to our main bodies of water like the Park Pond and like lower Three Runs. There's not as much water flowing through there to allow a passageway for invasive species like that.
Thank you.
Johnny, did you have another follow-up? Okay. Cool. Anything else from around the table?
Well, thank you guys for your time and appreciate it. And glad I was able to come here and step in for Davila Clark today. So I know he wishes he was here today, but unfortunately, some things change.
Thank you for filling in at the last minute. So, do we have, next thing up on the agenda is public comments. Do we have anybody that wants to make a public comment? Seeing none. All right, Heather, will you go meeting? Around the table, we have placed these ballots. I just stole Mr. Hartley, so I want to give a second. You don't know what you would be voting yay, nay, or abstain from. So we got to wait a minute. We got to get that. Some of you? Well, that's okay.
We didn't hear that.
We will, once it's pulled up.
If you did.
Hang on, folks. We still got a little bit of. We're not done quite yet. All right. Before we move to vote on this, Phyllis, do you have anything that you want to say about this?
No, I think we talked about it enough yesterday, so I think it's self-explanatory.
Okay. Then do we have a motion to approve? Been moved by Hubert. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Candace. Please go ahead and mark your ballots. I will come around and pick them up momentarily. Please fold them in half if you would.
Sign.
It is not. Please don't sign. I don't want to know what you voted. This is why we can't have nice things.
Early voting. The pass of the law.
Got it. Just kidding. No need to sign it or anything. You're good.
I voted yes or no.
That's good. Pick one.
Okay.
You don't have to sign it. You're so silly.
Here we go.
Just
Yay.
silly as the day is long.
Yay. Yay.
You said vote yes or no.
Yay.
I voted yes or no.
Yay.
You
Yay.
only one, right?
Yay.
Oh, Lord.
Of course I
Yay.
voted one.
Yay. 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 At this point, it's approved. I'm just checking to see if it's unanimous or not. And it is. The motion passes unanimously. Okay. Today. Before we start closing it out, is there anything that we needed to talk about? Anything that you wanted to say? Or in order to consider today and yesterday's successful meeting, I think it went well. You folks, up, down? Yes, Michelle.
I might have missed.
Can you grab the microphone for me?
Yes. You were saying that people have an opportunity to sign up for a committee?
We will be doing that via email.
Email, that's right. You
meeting.
did say
That's
that.
right.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Wonderful announcements. My daughter's on the A honor roll this year. Highest grade in social studies in her grade. So, I'm going to brag about that. Phyllis,
Okay, one thing I can't remember if this was mentioned yesterday, but please be reminded that you can attend every subcommittee meeting and you can join every subcommittee if you like. So don't miss that on the 18th of June.
Which reminds me, before you gavel out,
Okay.
these packets in front of you, board members, you don't have to keep the folder if you don't want to. You're welcome to take it with you. What I do ask, though, is the handouts inside. Board members who have been with us for a while, are we going to print new ones for you? No, this is it. Bring these to the subcommittee meetings when you attend, please, okay? Help us not have to print so much. We go through tons of paper for these meetings. I want to save a little bit if we can. All right, sorry. Thank you.
No problem. Okay.
Take the whole thing.
Just take it.
Phyllis?
Without objection, meeting adjourned.
Second.